Hey, it's Brian with Wicked Smart Gardening. Every time you pull leaves or a plant out of your garden, you have the opportunity to recycle that material and turn it into something that can improve your garden next year. And that something is called compost. Gardeners consider compost to be brown gold because it's loaded with nutrients that help your vegetables and flowers grow faster, stronger, and better. Compost also adds structure and texture to your soil, which lets more air in and makes it easier for roots to grow into your soil. Soil containing compost can hold moisture better too. In this video, I'll show you how to make compost and then give you 6 tips that'll help you speed up the composting process. I'll even share a bonus tip with you at the very end of this video. Now you can use almost any plant-based material in a compost pile, including kitchen scraps from the vegetables and fruits you bring home from the store or from the stuff you grow at home. Now I'm talking apple cores, carrot peelings, tomato tops, dead leaves, things like that. Now if you have a lawn and some trees in your yard, like I do, you get a fresh supply of leaves every fall and fresh grass clippings the following spring and summer. So I collect my leaves in a pile and I stick them in the back of my yard in the fall and I save them over the winter. Come springtime, I'll combine them with the grass clippings I get from cutting the lawn. And you can add in all the plants and scraps from your garden too. You can even add weeds if you want. I've even added shredded cardboard and paper too. And if you take all these ingredients and mix in a little soil, you can make your own brown gold or compost for yourself. But one word of caution about kitchen scraps. As kitchen scraps start to decompose, they may start to smell, which can attract animals that you may not want near your home or garden. One thing you can do is put your compost pile remote far away from your garden. You could also add kitchen scraps only when you have enough other material to really bury them deep into your compost pile. But what works for me is to mix my kitchen scraps with leaves and grass and stick them in a container which has a sealed lid to keep the animals out. I use a 30-gallon barrel with a clamp-on lid that I've drilled a bunch of holes in to let the air in. This provides a supply of air that keeps the decomposing material from rotting and getting really smelly. After the stuff in the barrel breaks down for a little while, it can be added to the compost pile and it won't attract animals. You can find all sorts of information about the ideal ratio of leaves to grass or other plant materials for you to use in your compost pile, but I've generally followed a 3-to-1 ratio of leaves to plant materials and grass clippings, which is about 6 inches worth of leaves mixed up with 2 inches worth of grass clippings or other materials. Now if everything is really dry, I'll sprinkle a little water on top. Before starting the next layer, I add a little bit of garden soil, just sprinkle it over the top. The soil adds the microbes that the compost pile needs. And because I have lots of pine trees in my yard, the pine needles make my compost acidic. So I sprinkle a little bit of lime on top of each layer to compensate for that. Now I keep building layers just like this until the pile gets to be 4 to 6 feet high. The pile's going to shrink to less than half that size as the material decomposes. Now you can turn your compost pile every month or two to mix everything up again and keep the decomposition process moving along. Now keep in mind that the decomposition process generates heat. In fact, you can make compost faster if you can keep your compost pile hot, if you can get your compost pile to heat up more, because everything happens faster at higher temperatures. And if you can get your compost pile really hot, you can make compost really fast and kill off weeds and most, if not all, of their seeds in the process. Now, if you're starting from scratch, or if you're in a hurry, you can make compost in as little as 2 to 3 weeks using these 6 tips. 1. You'll be able to make compost fastest in the heat of the summer when it's hot outside. Under summer conditions, you could make compost in as little as 2 to 3 weeks, and I've done it. 2. Your material will break down faster if it's well mixed with other materials. 3. Your material will break down faster if you start with smaller pieces. Now to make smaller pieces, you'll need some sort of shredder. Smaller pieces will be easier to break down. When I was younger and I had more energy, I used a leaf shredder and I could make compost in just a couple of weeks. 4. Put all your material into a container that you can seal the lid of to make it easier to turn or mix. But make sure the container has holes in the sides so your compost can get access to air and it can breathe. I have a 30-gallon container with a sealable lid that I drilled about 100 3/8-inch holes into the sides of. 5. Size matters. The bigger the pile of material you have, the hotter the pile will get in the center, and hotter makes things happen faster. You should be able to feel the heat on the side of the container after a day or two. 6. Mix up the contents of the container every single week. This mixes things that are on the outside of the pile that aren't so hot with things on the inside of the pile that are hot, and it keeps the process going. Now, personally, I've built quite a stockpile of compost over the years, and frankly, I don't have the time or energy to do all that stuff anymore, so I take a slightly different approach. I don't turn my compost pile over anymore. Rather, I have enough compost to last me for years so that I can afford to let my compost pile decompose naturally for 2 or maybe even more years. I build a pile and just let it sit and decompose over a couple of growing seasons. Now, you might be thinking, what do I do with all this compost after I make it? I like to add about an inch or 2 of compost to my garden beds every spring and mix it in just before planting my seeds and plants, although some people like to add compost in the fall at the end of the growing season. And lastly, the bonus I promised. A pile of newly cut grass builds a lot of heat in the first day or 2 after it's been cut. So make your compost right after cutting the lawn, and you'll get the most heat action out of the grass and speed up your compost making process. Happy gardening.